give them a period of time to qualify?
I think that'd have to be a requirement.
Okay,
I mean, if they're gonna be offered, the intent is they have to have a license. And
Yeah.
Phil and I had this discussion too. If that is the case, are we able to do like an in-house training
okay.
to help them get the license? And so that's what we said we would have to push for, if we have to hire someone with the intent for them to get their Class A.
If we can't find a CDL, that's what I thought, we'd try and train them and they'd have a strings attached to their hiring, they have to have a CDL within X months.
Yep, cause it wouldn't take a month to do that.
Right, the actual test you can schedule when you wanna do it, it's the training and making sure they have the ability to operate the heavy equipment.
Couple questions, and if this individual is doing snow plowing, would that mean it would be a savings to the highway department that's not listed down here of like approximately $1,600 if it's 80 hours of snow plow work? That's not part of is that what it would be because you're replacing a part-timer
It
with a
could be,
full-time?
in the event we have all of our equipment out, it could be savings, cause you're taking a part-timer off. In the event we have equipment not being utilized, cause we couldn't get enough part-timers to come in, you'd see an additional piece of equipment on the road that you wouldn't have otherwise seen. So it's gonna depend on the event, our
Okay.
call-ins vary with our response rate.
And then to piggyback off the CDL, is it gonna be a negative factor if they don't have a CDL and then you're sending them out on a snowplow route where, the part-timers already have that, so are we kinda shooting ourselves in the foot if we go that route in terms of they don't have a CDL, that we have someone inexperienced to be running a full-time route? I mean,
As far as the training required to get them the CDL,
right, I mean, cause if they already have the CDL, they already have the training, and then you have no worries about, that route.
Mhm.
Cause I've seen it through the township where you have someone kinda green, and people can really see that, and it's almost a negative factor. It's a negative factor towards the county itself, because it reflects poorly, like, if someone's not plowing.
if we have to go that route where we train them in, we help them get their CDL, there's gonna be growing pains, like training anybody with any position. Our part-timers, generally we require a CDL, but if you look, we're perpetually advertising. Ideally, we'll get someone with experience, and if we don't, I guess I'm willing to train them with the assumption they're gonna be around, hopefully for a long-term employee is my hope.
Mm-hmm.
But growing pains for sure.
But when you, in the job description, it says required CDL, so
It doesn't-
even if they
yeah.
don't have it,
Yeah.
are the odds that you're not gonna get a CDL? Is that what your assumption is possible with the current job outlook?
I'm optimistic. I don't know. If we get one, that'd be great. If we don't, we'll train them. But it's still required of the job, so
Right.
we're not gonna accept anybody that's not willing to or able to get a CDL.
It does say here, if this is what you're intending to post as the job description, it does say licensing requirements. Incumbents in this class typically require a CDL. I also noticed at the top of the posting page here, it says Parks Maintenance Worker / Public Works. But if this employee will be shared with Highway and Facilities, should that be a part of the job posting? Parks and Highway and Facilities Worker. I'm curious how that, if that needs to be
As far as
reworded.
building maintenance, is that kind of what you're getting at there? Cause it does refer to, the Parks Department then operating the heavy equipment for snow and ice removal on public roads.
Yeah.
If you're referring to the building maintenance, that's gonna be so minor in my opinion, it's more of if they have like a week-long project and they need assistance with something like that.
Okay.
So, we could add it in there if you feel that's absolutely necessary,
Well,
but
I was
the
wondering-
primary work is for parks and highway though.
Okay, because with sharing and with maybe additional funding coming from those budgets, would it be necessary to have that worded within the job posting, or would it have to be reworded? Because if Parks is going to use this person and Facilities use this person and Highway use this person, maybe we can draw funds from all of those pots,
You're gonna be drawing it from the taxpayer no matter
no
where you
matter
put
where it comes from.
So
But
that's the
don't-
bottom line.
Yep,
Don't you have it listed that way just to cover yourself with unions and crossing crafts and so forth?
that's a
So
good
that,
question.
you know, you can say, no, it was in the original posting.
Doesn't the HR department take care of this?
Yeah, so.
Okay.
So I'm comfortable that if
What's more important
McCallus,
is what's listed in the job description itself and the title of the position, you know. And, you know, as Braden mentioned, the responsibilities related to building maintenance and even frankly, the snow removal is fairly minor compared to the bulk of the work.
Okay, cause I thought, well, if we get into this, and then all of a sudden, they wanna put this person into a snowplow, no.
well, I think
That
that's,
wasn't here.
that better be part of the conversation, cause that's certainly the conversation I heard at the
And-
personnel
and
meeting.
that is listed.
If that's changing, then we shouldn't be here.
It is listed in the job description, operates heavy equipment including plows and for heavy trucks.
Item 4 calls that out.
Yep.
Okay. So
Even
they,
if it's not in the title, it's in the job.
if they jump from one department to the next, that's gotta be covered in here.
But it is.
I do like the idea of offering a position which could potentially bring a family to Meeker County. I have two young sons, they're young families, they love to use our parks. They're using them more in the winter. So I do see that, I would like to see it as a draw. You're probably not going to draw a family with the offering of a part-time posting versus a full-time. If I see the math here, you'd need an $18,000 increase in order to cover the cost of a full-time versus a part-time person,
Closer to 19,000, I would say, for
19.
20, yeah,
Yeah, but for 21, you're looking at 28,000.
correct, yep.
So don't let those numbers mix you up. That's-
22.
You're going from a part-time employee to a full-time employee, you're going from you're gonna be, and that's gonna go up every year.
Because of that,
Right, so with the
Yep,
COLAs and the
okay.
health insurance as they go, so that's to get through the year, and you're gonna hear a lot of that when people hey, they're gonna save money the first year.
yep,
I
okay.
agree,
Yeah, the net increase.
but that,
like
but
same
that
as
doesn't
20.
have a thing to do with what's gonna happen in the next budget.
So then the next year's budget would require more.
One question then, cause I'm with Beth in a lot of things, I like to stick to a budget, but the problem is you weren't anticipating this guy to quit this year. Is that my,
Correct, yeah.
and then with this situation, you're just trying to kill two birds with one stone with this position, so your whole intent with the budget was to continue to go with the part-time because Jim had told you
Would've
there
been
was,
back, yes.
right.
And then we would've went through the budget cycle, but it seemed like the timing wise, instead of waiting till next year, to get someone in place now with him not returning, it seemed appropriate to at least move forward, so we get someone who has all the requirements we're looking for in this full-time position, and we're not doing this all over again in a year's time. Because the part-time position doesn't have the broad array of duties required or skills that come with it, so I'm nervous about that, as you hire someone in that position, and they're not exactly qualified to move into that full-time position. So then we went through the whole process, training, you name it, and then we do it all over again.
One comment I would make too, and going back to the dispatch supervisor, that was pre-COVID that we approved that for the sheriff. And that position just got filled, I believe she started mid-November or December. I think he went out 3 different times to find a qualified candidate. So, I mean, the optimism of May might even be a little bit of a optimistic date. And I'm all for a quality employee versus quantity. So if we need to, go back out or whatever we need to do to fill this position, the right way would be good. Other point I wanted to make, in that work session last month, Phil brought up the maintenance of the highways and CSAH roads, and that manpower is one of his limiting factors in taking care of them roads, and at $1 million investment per mile to rebuild a blacktop road, I feel that we can't be drawing more of our manpower away from highway. And with this position, we're actually putting ensuring him a route on a road that he doesn't need to use a part-time worker for. One of the problems with our part-time list too is Carlin has told me already that he's had to go out with part-time snowplow operators and drive ahead of them and put tracks in the snow so they know where to go. And that's a definition of inefficiency, so we need to have some more dedicated drivers to a route that they know the route and they can plow that snow and get that
So are you
done.
saying you want them to find an experienced snowplow driver?
Well, they'll get the experience, but I'd rather do it one time, is what I'm saying. And find a qualified, and I understand the challenges. When I'm saying this, I'm not saying, go out there and find the top guy in the state. I'm saying, try and get the best candidate you can for the job.
I don't have a CDL. So if I started the process tomorrow, what's the time frame to finally be approved for the CDL? Is it a month? Is it 2 months? Is it?
I think you could do it within a month if you can get enough seat time to learn how to operate the equipment and then go take the test. The actual testing process, I haven't been through it myself, but it's not that intense. It's schedule the test, go take the test, but you're gonna need seat time and training to be able to pass the test.
Okay. So you're saying approximately a month?
It could be done in a month. If you've never, it depends on what your background and experience is.
So to bring a new person on, would that be the first thing you'd attack then, is getting the CDL done, or it's coming, May is when you ramp up?
So we're already ramped up in April, so
Yeah.
that's, it'll have to be done in between times. So like Phil is saying, there'd be time where we could schedule, say, like a Friday afternoon or something, get seat time.
Okay.
That kind of, we could work around it. It just wouldn't be dedicated to straight training at first for us anyway.
So in other words, it won't take a month, it's gonna take a little longer, cause you'll be searching for those times.
I say realistically, yes.
Yeah. So in theory, do they have a number of opportunities to pass it before their disqualified period, or?
I think that's 6 months, don't you, Phil?
I don't know how they handle the retesting. You're saying if they don't pass the first time? I'm not sure how they
Okay.
Cause you take your written, my son just did it a year and a half, 2 years ago. And I know they've changed the requirements again since then. And I believe, once you pass the written portion, then that's good for 6 months or maybe even a year. You have a certain amount of time to pass the road test then. The road test is what they've changed dramatically, the inspection of the trucks, things like that, the safety aspect of it.
So in theory, we find a candidate, you hired a candidate, may not have that CDL, the final qualification piece, until October, November.
Possibly.
So in theory, you'd have an approval to hire a full-time person pending qualifications. So we'd really have a part-time person almost to the new budget cycle. In theory. I'm just saying, he hasn't qualified, he or she has not qualified for their CDL yet. So, yeah, you'd have the authority to hire the full-time, however, pending the qualification. And in reality, we'd have that part-timer just like we've had all these other years in that interim period.
Making twice as much money as the other part-time maker is making, so don't forget that part, Paul.
Yeah.
So anyway, I would call for the question, I think, unless somebody has, I think I know how this is gonna go. Madam Chair.
We have a call for the question. We have a motion to hire a full-time person. Would you like to have the actual motion read to us before we take a vote?
I think it, does everybody knows
I
what they're
read
voting
it
on,
off the
I think.
paper.
Okay.
I read it off the paper.
Okay, so we will take a vote. All those in favor of allowing a full-time person to be hired by the Parks and Maintenance Department, say aye. Aye. Those opposed?
Aye. Me, no.
Yeah.
Whatever I'm supposed to say. Me, no.
I believe the motion has carried. All right. Will we have an opportunity to see the final copy of the job description before it is posted?
Typically, I guess it depends on what HR wants to do with it.
We never do, we don't do that. We have a good HR department, and I'm gonna suggest we continue that way. It'll be fine. If you see something posted, Madam Chair, and I think if you have a question, then call Mikkel. That would be, Andrew, does that sound?
Yeah, absolutely, I would agree with that.
She does a good job on that.
Our two folks will continue to
Sure.
serve on the personnel and you'll be a part of all of this.
Well, we're not a part of the hiring, no,
Not
they'll
really, we're
hire.
done with that.
We're done, and they'll hire, and they'll let us know who they hire.
Yep.
The personnel doesn't serve unless it's on the, we're doing a department head or something.
I see.
And so we would loop the personnel committee in if we found someone who was exceptionally qualified, decade of experience, 2 decades of experience, and the only way we could bring them in is if we had to hire higher on the.
Oh my gosh, you're kidding me, right?
I'm just saying, that is
They're really out to
how
get
would
me.
get involved in the process. Otherwise, we'll come back to the board as we typically would to seek, approval to, actually offer the position. Once we have a candidate.
Don't come back with somebody and, please, don't.
I already know that.
Well, it does, I mean, you got the deal, but I hope that doesn't happen.
And yeah, so when we make adjustments to the job description, HR always clears it.
Right.
So if we want, anything needs to be tweaked before the final goes out, it will be done in that office.
And that doesn't mean if you have, so you can look at it online, and if you have a question, give her a call.
But you'll be in charge of the hiring committee.
Well, yeah, we go through our process like that, so
It'll
HR
be
is involved.
McKellen.
Yeah,
You too.
McKell,
Typically, I'm a board member, park board member that we usually have sit in with park hires anyway, so I'm sure Phil will be in on it
Yeah.
because of the CDL part, so.
Excellent.
And Madam Chair, the job description that was in the packet, that is a new job description for this position. That should, unless there's errors or minor tweaks, that should pretty much be it.
I did a
I
full
understand.
revamp of it, so it's nothing compared to what they looked like before.
Yep.
So much more detail in this one.
Very good, yes, I like the detail, because then the bases get covered. All right,
Thanks, everyone.
thank you. Thank
Thank
you,
you, guys.
Braden. Phil, I believe you're next.
You happy to spend $40,000, but spend a lot of money today.
I don't like spending money.
I don't believe you anymore, I think you are. We'll see. Turn something on.
You know how I feel about that.
I'm gonna vote no.
Okay, good morning.
Good morning.
We're laughing at.
Once again, Phil Schmull, Public Works Director. I'm here this morning to seek approval to sell existing equipment and to purchase a new pickup. So there's a little bit of a shuffle with what we have proposed here. There's $45,000 in our 2021 budget to replace one of our heavier pickups. That's unit 98.3. And looking at our fleet, that pickup was a Ford F-450, heavy pickup. We think we can get by with something a little lighter. We had a new heavy pickup purchased after we had a shop fire last winter. So we're thinking, the big one right now, 98.3 is most commonly utilized to haul personnel. We don't need a big heavy truck for hauling personnel. So we wanted to buy something a little bit heavier for the ditch inspector. Highway department owns the truck that ditch inspector uses, and they pay mileage to the highway department. That's how we're set up. So we take their 1,500 pickup, use it for highway, and then they would borrow the pickup I'm proposing to purchase here, which is the 2021 Ram Tradesman 4x4 2500, and that is a 3/4 ton pickup with an 8-foot bed. The cost associated with this net transaction is approximately $28,000, assuming we get $2,000 or $3,000 for our auction on the existing unit. So I propose approve selling unit 98.3 at an upcoming auction and purchasing a 2021 2500 Ram Tradesman 4x4 from Litchfield Chrysler Center for $30,111. And one thing you'll see in the financial impact section, we did get a quote from Atwater Ford as well. It was slightly lower. Outside the county, I thought the difference warranted buying within the county.
How many bids were taken?
2. We got a third one later after I submitted this that was higher than these 2. And typically we'll look at the state contract because the manufacturer's bid with the state. For pickups, for whatever reason, our local dealers give us better pricing than state contract. So these are not state contract prices, but they are lower than what the last state contract was. Currently, the state contract for pickups is under negotiation, so we don't have access to it for 2021 yet. But the prices are good. They're lower than what we saw last year for state contract numbers.
Is there a requirement when we go looking for a new piece of equipment, how many bids we take, who we take them from? Or do you advertise it and then the bids come in from whomever?
We go to the dealers that we are usually doing business with. There's 3 or 4, depending on the piece of equipment. You know, with a plow truck, we're dealing with different entities than we are with a pickup truck.
So are we required, and this is to teach me here, to take the lowest of the quotes?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
We just gotta, I asked Barb.
To have an explanation.
Yeah, we have to explain the reason and why we took we have to justify the $111 more that we're gonna spend, and if the board feels that, Chrysler here in town is, Dodge is the way to go because it's in county, then we have to just
Well,
be
you'd have
okay
to-
with that decision.
It's $100. I mean, if you send 2
Yeah.
guys to pick it up, they're waiting per hour,
Yeah.
there's the
Exactly.
difference.
Exactly.
So-
Depends on the process and the dollar amount too. So quotes, we have more flexibility. If we were talking about a bid process, higher dollar amount.
Like for buying a snowplow, it's a whole different
Yeah.
ballgame.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just have I'm sorry, are you done? I have a question about, did we buy, is the highway or the ditch inspector, we charge mileage to the ditch fund, right?
Yep.
So do we charge whatever the going rate is? And so did we furnish a new pickup to him and then it wasn't the right, I mean, why, I'm not quite clear on why we're doing this, I guess.
Well, we had the 1998 pickup in
Right.
for replacement, so instead of replacing it straight up, we thought, which we could do, I guess, that's what we had budgeted.
Okay,
We thought he could better utilize something slightly heavier and we
Okay.
could utilize something lighter.
okay,
So
so you
that's
just
why we have
switched
the
it
Doing
around.
the switch.
Okay, I just wasn't clear.
I mean, in the end, we're replacing the heavy duty pickup with a 3/4 ton. That's really what we're doing, we're just moving around what's gonna get used where.
Okay,
So the 450 probably had duals on the rear.
I
And
assume
this
so.
one won't. You don't have a need for the duals in any of our work.
Not for what he's gonna be using it for primarily.
Yep.
And
And-
part of the reason we can get by is, mainly with our jetter setup and how we handle our water tank and the trailer. 1 unit, it used to be 2 units, that's part of the reason we've been able to reduce the number of heavy trucks that we think we need
And
towing.
there was a shop fire last year and the one truck got damaged, so we just replaced like a 450 or 550, we replaced that with, so that's what he was referring to, they replaced one last year through insurance from damage in that fire, that was a heavier unit, so they've got one that's been replaced already.
And you're able to use a lighter truck primarily for hauling personnel versus equipment, but the 8-foot bed allows him to have some hauling along with it, as if I was reading some of this.
Yep, the
correctly.
longer bed will let the ditch inspector more easily carry their chainsaw pack and the different things he's carrying with for spraying and maintaining brush.
Do we care if it's a Ford or a Dodge? Okay. Okay. I do like the idea of purchasing within county. I did appreciate that.
And I like the $17,000 savings, cause that nearly equates our budget request for, parks maintenance guy for the year too, so it keeps our budget in line. Well, I mean, that's
It does.
because I
math.
know you won't have another pickup in the next budget. Yeah. I'll move that we, sell the equipment requested and, purchase the new truck.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion to sell one vehicle and purchase another according to our request. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Phil.
Thanks, Phil.
Okay.
Should have voted negative to that.
Sharon,
I think I'm gonna be doing that a lot this year.
And it'll be
Good morning.
Sharon Early, County Treasurer. I have just one item for board consideration today, and that's to approve the 2020 annual audit engagement letter. Every year we sign an agreement to what they're going to audit us on and what we have to provide to them. And so that was included in your packet. There's only a couple minor changes on two of them, and that's because the state auditor's office is still working from home, so they're doing everything remotely. So they won't be coming on site like they have in the past. They'll be getting their documents through email, or we have a shared website that we will be providing those on. And when they're doing interviews or talking with certain offices, they'll probably do that either by phone or WebEx. So those were the two changes that were on page 6 and 9. Otherwise, it's the same.
I had a question. $70,500. That's a lot of money in my book. This is the annual cost to Meeker County to have our books audited?
Right, yeah.
Every year it's
Well,
70.
That's the max, or that's what we budget for, but it comes in right around there, anywhere from 65 to 70 usually.
So I have a question. I thought we weren't gonna use the state of Minnesota anymore.
It's a 2-year contract, the next one
That
starts
was
next year.
my question. So next year we'll have a private firm coming in?
Okay.
There used to be a ordinance, a statute that we had to use the state, and after many lawsuits, we do not have to. So I couldn't recall when I was reading this who we're using. We
This
voted
next year,
Yeah.
Clifton Allen,
Clifton Allen. That's who it'll be next year.
that's what it will be for.
And it isn't gonna be a lot cheaper probably, but we thought if we were, I think our thinking was we're gonna give it to a private company.
Many,
65,000 or something?
in that 60 to 65,
Yeah.
I believe was
Something like that.
the estimated cost for 2022.
Is that something that we bid? It's obviously
We
outsourced,
did.
but
It's a 2-year commitment. We've been with the state for a number of years.
Well, forever because you had to be.
And a lot of,
And then
many
when
other
they changed
counties.
it, we still stayed with them because Sharon was kinda new in her position, but now so next year we'll be using the
Yeah, 'cause
private
it was a
company.
2-year contract that we had, and so this is the second year of that. And in regards to that, we did go out and get bids prior to establishing the one we're going to be using next year, and then that's another 2-year contract.
You did that this summer, didn't you?
Yes,
Just to me?
yes, probably
I thought it was this
September.
year that the new one started, but I didn't understand.
Yeah,
No,
it's-
you have to give them a 2-year notice.
2-year
so we
notice, and I
did
thought we
this
had done
last
that,
year
but-
To take care of this
So-
follow-up of that.
So next September, we'll probably be giving notice to the new company whether we're gonna make a change.
Right, they're already aware.
You know,
That's
we'll
been-
have to.
Yeah, but then we'll do the engagement letter with them next.
Next,
Yeah,
in fall of
before we start.
2022, we'll have to already do, so midterm of your audit, you're gonna have to give notice to them whether you want them again or whether you're gonna go out and go back to the
Did
state.
they know we're
or-
not using them again after this year?
They do.
I'm sure we're not the only ones. I think that's happening all over Minnesota.
So this is a huge advantage actually for us. We actually get a free market ability to get whomever we choose in terms of what price and going forward.
If you
I
read
think-
about, if you read about the lawsuits, there was a lot of, some counties started, they didn't think we should have to use the state of Minnesota, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, so there was some lawsuits out there. And then the Minnesota, kept going back to court, and many counties thought wasting a lot of money, rather than just accepting the answer that was put before them, which was this, we're gonna have a free market. In the end, after, this was several years of
Yeah,
this
it was.
fight, the counties won and were able to. And at least my feeling is, and I don't think there's gonna be a big difference in the cost, I could be wrong. But I feel like at least we're using a private company that's not a government entity, and I think that's a good thing.
May I ask, how long does this audit take when they actually do
We're
it?
actually just starting it now, and it won't conclude until September.
It's
So
a long,
It's a long process, yep.
and they're still, so they won't be in here this year.
Right, and they weren't last year either, I
Oh,
mean,
they
they
weren't.
started, they were
No,
here
that's
at
right,
the
we've been in
beginning,
this
and
a
then-
year,
Yeah.
haven't we?
And so, and they normally come out, like now they'll come out once, and then they come out again in June, and they won't be doing that at all, so we're doing everything.
Cool.
I think about half of the counties in the state are private. I mean, some stay with the state, some haven't,
Right.
but I
I
think
think as
it's,
it goes on, more of them are going private.
So how in-depth is this audit? I mean, do they come back and say, I'd like to see receipts for certain things, or?
They do tests, so they'll go through and they'll pull randomly like 75 bills or something like that. And then depending on how they come back, if they're accurate or under a certain percentage, then they don't test anymore. If they find that there's a similar problem, then they might test another 100 or something like that until they get to the comfort level or see if there is something that has been. So it's done that way, and different interviews are done with different department heads and that kind of thing too on their own agencies, and it gets pretty in-depth on those types of things.
Are there companies within Meeker County that bid on this?
We did not find any.
They did not, we offered it to them, but they declined
Decline.
to bid.
That could change over the years, but for now, they don't, so.
So
Hence the cost.
what are you looking
There's only
for?
a certain,
She needs
And
a
it takes
motion.
quite a few people to do that. I mean, I think like on here, they have like 14 different members of the state audit crew that work on different things or different types of positions that, so.
Will there be a savings because now it's online instead of mileage?
It
incurred?
might be because, I mean, they won't be charging the drive time and that kind of thing too, because they charge by the hour, so, and then they send us an itemized statement to,
Where are they located?
most of them are in St. Paul. I mean, it depends on where they work. I mean, if they live in Delano and they're driving here versus going
Oh.
into the, I mean,
I see.
I don't know where all the audit team lives, but they are always out of St. Paul.
St. Paul.
Madam Chair, I
Yes.
make a motion to approve the annual audit engagement letter.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second, Madam Chair.
We have a motion to approve the request for an audit engagement letter. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sharon.
Greg,
Morning,
good morning.
Greg Schultz, Land Use Director. This morning for the board, I've got one item, one CUP from the February 9th, 2021 Planning Commission meeting for your consideration. This CUP is number 15540 for James and Megan Kolsky, Lake Washington Shoreline Landscaping Project for parcel number 0604140000. And the board recommended to approve a conditional use permit application for more than 10 cubic yards of material in the shore impact zone and more than 50 cubic yards of material in the shoreline district of Lake Washington with the conditions.
Greg, did they have to contact the DNR about the riprap going into the lake, or did they not need a permit from them?
Here for this one.
Okay. I move,
Ethan actually commented on that on January 28th.
Oh.
No permit needed yet.
No, this is for the Lake Washington request,
Correct,
right?
correct.
Koski?
Koski.
Koski. Is there always an inspection from the DNR and a permit required when work like this is done?
A comment from the DNR is required, not necessarily an inspection. They'll look over the plans, and see if it requires it. Sometimes they'll inspect, sometimes they won't. We'll always, as a planning commission, will always view it prior to the meeting.
Madam Chair, motion to approve.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second that motion.
Is there any discussion? I have another question. It says on the last page of your form here that the project start is dependent on a passing septic compliance inspection. Is this something that's done for every request that comes?
Every permit that's in the shoreline district requires a septic compliance
Okay.
inspection, yes.
Okay.
Since it's in the middle of winter and it's frozen, they'll have to wait till things thaw out to do a proper inspection.
Very good.
You can do it ahead of time, but it costs a lot of money to thaw out the ground, so they're gonna wait until.
Wait until then. Okay, good. I was questioning that. And is this in Beth's territory or is this in your territory, Paul?
200.
Lake Washington?
Well, see, we kind of split Lake Washington.
I wondered about that.
You have more than I do, I think, so, but I don't recognize the names.
Okay, because it says here under municipalities notified, Commissioner Beth Oberg, and DNR.
Yeah, I did get the letter, so I'm assuming it's in my.
It must be
area.
in your, so I wondered if the lake was split.
Yes, it is.
Any other discussion on this? All those in favor, say aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. For the Koski
That's all I had.
Lake Washington.
All right.
Thanks, Greg.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Greg.
Passed. Teresa?
My name is Teresa Leeser, I'm the GIS coordinator for the county, and today I'm here for approval of the Schneider Geospatial Professional Services Agreement. For those of you not familiar, it's the beacon property search that county departments and the public they can go on and look at their property and many different layers on there. And the reason for this contract today, we've had it about 5 years through MCCC. And the reason for to have to sign a new one is that Schneider and MCCC couldn't agree on a contract anymore. So we are now wanting to sign a contract specifically with Schneider.
I move to, approve the, Snyder agreement.
We have a motion. Do I hear a second?
I will second that, Madam Chair.
Is there any discussion? I have a question. I see that the Schneider Company has 3 locations, Iowa, Indiana, and Florida. There were no Minnesota, we're leaving what's called Minnesota counties. We're not going to be doing business with them anymore, you'd prefer to use the Snyder Company. It doesn't make any difference what state they're,
Right, I mean,
Associated with?
MCCC is just someone can help me, but the Minnesota.
counties computer cooperative.
Yeah, so they worked on other counties and our county's behalf to get a good deal with Schneider. And now,
What are some of the other Minnesota counties, if they're all leaving this Minnesota counties CCC, are they turning to other companies like this then?
no, Wright County, they signed the same agreement we did. Stern to Benton County. There's a lot on there.
I think what's important about this specific item is that the company that we're actually contracting with is no different. We were contracting with Schneider before, we're gonna continue to contract with Schneider if it's approved by the board. The difference is the process in which we followed to get that contract. Previously, we were working through MNCCC, and now we're just working directly with Schneider to come up with an agreement, so.
Okay, and this is GPS or it's,
GIS,
and it
Geographic Information Systems.
uses for property lines and septics that flow into lakes and ditches and building maintenance and,
Yeah, if you're not familiar with it, if you go to the county's homepage on the left-hand side, there's Beacon Property Search. And that allows you to search by name, parcel ID, address, and view your property
okay,
and other things.
and that's the services that they will provide. Any further discussion or questions?
I have one question on the contract itself. What page am I on? 5. It says pricing on my screen here. It says pricing is valid through December 31, 2020. Is that the right year?
I see that too.
That's my only
I think
question.
what happened is the price was already
That's,
established in
yeah.
2020, and what happened is I worked with Wright County to get the strong language. So instead of going through MCCC, we had each county attorney had to go and work with Schneider, and so it took us a little bit longer for them to hammer down the conditions and language. So like we changed it from Iowa to Minnesota
Yeah.
jurisdiction, and so the discussion started way back in December 2020, so that rate was already established at that time.
Okay, so date's correct. I just something I
Good
caught.
They'll be updated. Okay. Any
I
additional?
didn't want Julie to have to sign for that.
Yeah, wait a minute. What's the date today? Oh, I know it, I know it. Very good. Any additional questions or discussion? Okay, we have the motion to accept using the Schneider Company for our geospatial services. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thanks, Teresa.
There we go. Paul? Good morning.
Morning. It's chilly out.
Go.
The first order of business I have for you is a request for board action to move the costs associated with social services from human resources to the social services budget.
I'll move to approve.
And I presented the information. Do you want me to review what I have presented to you, or do you have questions?
I'm sorry.
That was good.
I'm learning the new process here, so I
Yeah.
Well, we got
Me
a
too.
motion,
I made a
right?
motion.
Yeah,
Let's,
we
I'll
have-
second it, Madam Chair, and then
We can have
We have a
discussion.
motion and a
so we
second.
don't trip you up and
Yep,
get in
to
between here.
approve what Paul has presented here. Is there discussion? Any questions or discussion? I have some questions.
Well, I think it would be probably good if Paul took a couple, just gave you an explanation of
Yep.
what merit system was first, because this has been quite a hill, mountain.
Sure.
Actually a mountain.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Merit system is a setup by Minnesota State to serve social services departments and human services departments for their HR functions. It originally was set up because there's a lot of small town counties that haven't had the ability to meet their own HR demands for the hiring of people that work in social services, which as here is a large volume of our employee population. There are some statute requirements for counties to meet when they hire social services employees. The merit system is a unique entity, as well as the merit system process on how we hire folks. When we started to have an HR department here, we found that there was a lot of duplication of effort between what merit system was doing and what our HR was doing. This has created some problems for us, and it actually had some challenges when we were looking to hire individuals. So folks would come in and apply at the county, we would have to tell them, no, you can't just apply here, you have to also apply at merit system. And there is a testing process and a review process for that individual to go through. And so we were losing some candidates because of the timing of the time delay that it would take for them to qualify through that merit system process. There were also times where we would get information and candidates through the merit system that we would have them apply through our county-based system here as well. That created some challenges for individuals also. And it really wasn't a good feel when you were looking to recruit or hire qualified candidates and we were having them do these multiple systems and there wasn't a lot of conversation back and forth and it was just really problematic. Since we have a strong HR department, we have moved to remove ourselves from merit system. And this is something that's been going on over the course of the last 5 years for a number of counties, for the reasons that I've provided you. Most counties now are recognizing the need to have an HR department. And they're saying, well, why are we paying for a merit system when we have an HR department here? So that's kind of the history of where we got to the excitement of no longer being on merit system January 1st of this year. Social services has been moving to really a cost-based accounting structure. We want to know what it costs us to do those services. We receive administrative reimbursement for our costs of doing that service. We also receive some funds that come through in the formulation of our targeted case management rates and our case management rates. We're also looking forward to some significant changes in that reimbursement process, how those rates are formulated. For us to be in a good position, we do need to know exactly what our costs for those services are. Plus, we know that we receive an administrative allowance of about 30% of everything we spend on administration. Currently, our HR department has a budget of about $171,000. Approximately 51,000 of that is attributed to social services. When you look at the estimated cost from Mikkel and Patty's time, based on what they're seeing, as well as the number of employees that we have as compared to the rest of the county, it really comes out to be about 32% approximately. We're proposing that we then have HR bill us social services or move this account code to social services so that we can have it in our budget, so we can recognize exactly fully what those costs are, so we can draw down that administrative reimbursement as well, and then have a better understanding of what the overall cost of providing those services are, so that we know when we look into these cost reimbursement strategies and formulation of new rates, we know if we're getting a good deal or if we're not getting a good deal. And so that's the crux of my request and proposal. There may be in the future some other areas that we would be looking to move administrative costs from wherever they may be located in the county to social services, but we'll have those conversations under Andrew's direction.
And I just wanted to know, this is something we're currently doing with IT right now.
We're doing this with IT, we're also doing this with county attorney's office, and we are doing some of this with the sheriff's department, but not all of it, because their funding schematic also is based on some of those reimbursements and administrative reimbursements that we receive as well.
Did you have a person that was doing your HR, or did you simply use this company to do them?
So we used the company, and that was really kind of our advertisements, our marketing, and they would collect the pool of individual candidates and do some of that training. However, we did have folks at social services that fed the system, a merit system, myself as well as another supervisor, as well as our other supervisors were doing a lot of this work. However, my arrival, we have had an HR department here, and so it was kind of an unusual fit. Mikkel really helped us clean up the process because she took over the merit system mess. Pardon me.
Sure.
Was really the best way to determine it. Took that over, and so she was really handling all of this, and we reduced that burden off of our managers and really kind of shifted it over to HR. And again, that's really kind of where the impetus for changing this process came from. And I completely agreed with Mikkel's assessment that we're just doing too many different things here. And the opportunity to build a strong HR department that's going to benefit the whole county is very attractive for me.
Part of the issue, if I may, was I didn't know what merit system was either, and I would get phone calls from people who go, well, gee, I put my application in and now I can't, you gotta have this merit test, and then they weren't giving the test and pretty soon you weren't getting any, it was just a confusing. So when Paul came and started, all I ever heard was, well, we have to have the merit, we have to have merit system. It turned out we didn't have to have merit system, and Paul and Mikkel had been working on this for
About 2 years.
2 years. Trying to unwind from this has been a real nightmare because these people wanted you to know their worth, and they're losing. I think there's a few counties doing it.
I'm aware of right now, when we went through this last year, there were, I think, 5 or 6 counties that were pulling out of it. And this year I'm aware of at least 12 more
Right.
counties.
Because the system is just not, it's not for us. Maybe it's got, I don't know if it has to do with our size county and it works better in bigger, but it's,
Well, yeah, our size of county is an impact for sure, because we have the ability to have a standalone HR. It's really gonna be problematic for some of those smaller counties, but they're also looking at doing something as far as a regional effort where they may share HR.
right.
You know, I mean, and not to really cast stones at Merit System,
No.
it served its purpose well. It just didn't quite keep up with the demands and the needs. When we look at some of the online type opportunities like Indeed, which is a hiring site, and how robust those have become over the course of the last few years. I mean, it really gives us a broader net to capture potential qualified candidates for our positions.
And I think they weren't willing to change the way they did business either, so, I mean, I'm not,
There was some significant delays in their growth. They do have new leadership now. Unfortunately, you're seeing the exodus away from it. So whether they're going to be able to survive as they are or not, I don't know. I'm happy to say we're at where we're at, and I really like working with Mikkel. Our HR needs are being responded to. We're getting good candidates. The process in which we go through hiring candidates is robust. And we're getting some folks that are here to stick around for a while too, so that's always nice.
I'm looking at your financial impact here, and it's going to be saving the county 13,000, but then I don't understand the costs.
So here's the shell game.
Yeah,
was-
that's
I
what
was-
I'm wondering.
There's one word in here, Julie,
Uh-oh.
Madam Chair, that I
Yeah.
noticed, and it was in the very last line under financial impact, and it says, this will appear is the word, as an
Over,
over budget. So you need to explain what appear means. That sentence, Paul.
I was
Well,
wondering, what, we're saving,
Funding schematics.
we're
for-
saving 13,500, but you're asking for 51,500? I thought, well, I'm not catching the math.
Yeah,
But,
okay,
yeah.
so yeah, that's always a challenge, because if we were to do nothing, social services would benefit from 13.5 that we budgeted that would not be spent. Thank you, that'd make me look.
Yep.
Wow, would really do much for me, to be honest.
But we'll take
Spend
it.
somewhere else,
Yeah.
unfortunately. Unfortunately. So what happens is that 13.5 is no longer being spent. We receive approximately 30% of that, $4,000 in administrative reimbursements. So that 13.5 and that 45, 40/50, it just kind of becomes null and void. There's nothing there. Now that we're not in a merit system, we're not spending it, we're not receiving that administrative option. HR has already been budgeted and levied for. So what we're saying is that what is being spent in HR moves to social services. And that is about $51,000 approximately. We're going to receive approximately 30% of that back through social services, through administrative reimbursements, et cetera. That's not going to materialize until 2022, because there's always a look back on our administrative expenses. So moving it from the administration code or from HR to social services is going to look like I'm going to have a $51,000 over expenditure, because I haven't put that in my budget. As a county as a whole, that has already been budgeted for, so it's not going to change the overall impact to the county, other than the fact that when we move into 2022, we're gonna draw down that 30% of that 51,000 approximately. And that's going to reduce the overall levy impact by that 30%.
Because I'm not picking up on, if the services are no longer outsourced through social services, we're bringing those responsibilities over to McKell, wouldn't McKell's budget require then some additional workforce or pay to
Well,
encumber?
McKell charges services out to social service, county, right?
Well, no, that's what we're saying we would like her to start doing.
That's,
So she's going to do that.
that's where he's gonna appear over budget, but
She's
you're
gonna
actually
appear
getting.
under budget.
Yes, her budget's gonna go down in that area and Paul's is gonna go up.
But
so
she's
she'll
gonna
be
charge you
short,
for her time,
Yes.
right?
That's
Just
what
like the
we're-
county
that's
attorney charges
And
for
then
their
he'll
time.
get a state, he can apply for up to 30% of that money back.
Yeah, just flowing
And
it
that'll
through our
follow
budget
next
becomes an
year.
administrative cost, and that's where we get the reimbursement back through vulnerable children's funds.
Okay.
And that's an administrative allowance that we receive back.
But some of
Does
that,
does that answer your question? I don't
It-
know.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, we're eliminating, we're bringing it over here, McKell has to pick up the responsibilities, who's going to pay for that? And so it's kind of a
Madam Chair,
give
I
and
think
take here a little bit?
I think it's important to note that the reason that we had the problem with the merit system is we were already overlapping.
Yep.
And so by eliminating the merit system, we were already doing a lot of the things that merit system was also doing.
It was kind
And
of
so
a
by
double.
getting rid of merit system, it doesn't actually add work because we were already doing that work. And McKell was already doing that work.
Okay.
So there, really what we're talking about here for this specific item is just an accounting item. I mean, where is the money being accounted for? Is it being accounted for in the revenue fund in the HR budget, or is it being accounted for in the human services fund in the social services budget? And depending on where that is, will impact how much we can get for administrative reimbursement in the future, which is why we're recommending, instead of putting it here in the revenue fund, let's adjust it over here to the human services fund, and then we can capture more administrative service revenue in the future, and therefore have less of an impact on the levy.
But
It
she,
should
but
also-
she keeps track of each department and what work she does for, and social services, obviously with all the employees is and highway probably are two bigger, well, social service is probably the biggest one, I would guess.
Because those administrative services that had been done over there now are being done by our McKell, so why should we have to reimburse social services for those administrative costs if McKell is already picking that up?
Cause we
We're
can't
not
get the 30%.
reimbursing social
No.
services, we're actually picking up the cost.
Yeah, so it
We're
doesn't
gonna be
cost,
the payor now.
Okay,
at the end of the day, it's gonna be a net gain.
it's gonna be a
When
while.
we're all done in 2022, this will be a net gain
Yes,
of about
But it-
30,000.
30% of the
30%,
51, yep.
yeah.
It should also put things in the right perspective when you go to do next year's budget. Those figures are now in the correct areas, not in human resources or in social services, when you're drawing the budgets for the future, correct?
It'll be a shift. It'll adjust it, yes.
Yeah.
One will come down.
So it's really kind of cost-centered accounting. It's moving administrative costs that have been embedded in other areas of the county to that specific department. So there's accuracy in knowing exactly what it costs in that department to do business.
Cause you're
They're cause we have areas like the county attorney's office, IT costs us money because social services needs that.
oh,
And
sure.
so we're paying those.
And
those
that's part of your
departments.
cost basis for your reimbursement,
Correct.
that's why
Okay.
he's,
So there
so where he's
should be-
reimbursed from the government, from, yeah, right.
There should be a savings then to the county by eliminating this other company. That-
Yes.
as-
Yes, we got enough to pay for that part-time parks guy, let's go on.
Twice, twice today.
Sorry, I brought that
Twice.
up.
I thought I'd beat Commissioner.
We didn't even get through the meeting and
Gonna
we're
hear
making
about
money.
that now I thought
That
think
being
we're
said
broke
by
even at
Beth,
Do we have
Madam
a
Chair, I
motion?
move to approve
There you
the
go.
allocation of human resource costs from revenue fund to human services fund in the amount of $51,490.
Excuse me, but we've already had a motion.
Yeah.
We did?
I made a
We
motion, I
did,
think.
yes.
Sorry.
So
I
we-
think
I should have paid
have a
more attention.
motion, it was seconded, we've been
was a while
engaged in
ago.
discussion, is there any further discussion? Good discussion, so Those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Aye. Those opposed? Okay, motion
Thank you for your
carried.
thoughtful review.
Yes.
Thanks for your,
Next order of business I have before you is our accounts payable.
I move to approve the social service accounts payable.
I'll second, Madam Chair.
For a second, all right. We have a motion to approve accounts payable. Any discussion?
I had a, as long as I got Barb and Paul here. And this, I just wanna know where to go for lunch, and I noticed in the county nurse fund that we had $420 for cookbooks, and I'm sure there's a reason for that, or a plan. Is that a Diane question, or can either one of you answer?
It was part of their SHIP plan, and that's part of their education plan.
Okay,
It went on the SHIP fund,
okay.
and that's educational material.
And there's one other one I had in the bills, and this is probably Barb, and that, we had, some mileage in there at 79 cents a mile, a lot of entries. I think that was through Phil's, it might have been through Phil, I should ask him, but the rate was 79 cents a mile, and I don't, there's a reasoning for it, I think, but I'm sure, but,
Yeah, I don't know if that, I
don't
don't think that
remember
came
seeing
through
that one,
mine.
so
okay.
fire that one out to me and
I
I'll
just
look at
made a note, and it's probably Phil.
I divided out a couple of them just to be sure they were on the new rate, so I did not catch that
I think
one.
somebody was on a rate we haven't had for years if it's 79
It's,
cents.
there's multiple entries,
Multiple
so I
entries.
mean, it's,
There's no what?
there's multiple entries, like,
Oh,
it's
there's
like a
that's a
page of
mistake.
79 cents a miles, but
I didn't notice
Divide
that.
the number of them
Yeah,
just because I
that's-
wanted to be sure they were on the right
that's
spot.
bad division.
I'll look at that.
he could have been billing out for some, you know, I mean, not necessarily a federal rate.
Well, if it was through social services, which I didn't see in our budget, there are some pass-throughs. That we pay, a higher rate of mileage, and that comes from reimbursements with various health plans.
That could be.
About 79 cents.
I never recall 79 cents.
It's in the, I could pull it up, but we won't go that in depth, but it's there.
Barb will
Okay.
check
Unless
on
my
it.
glasses were dirty.
Is it in my budget? I didn't see it.
I didn't detail my note good enough here.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I'll touch base with you later, we'll figure it out.
Okay.
Barb will look at it, she's
Kinda
curious.
like-
Yeah, you guys
It's kinda
are
like
really
Kevin.
stretching this. I know everybody.
Almost like Kevin Hausman here, isn't it?
We have lots of questions. We did our
I'm
homework.
gonna have to expand my review.
Cookbooks.
Any further discussion on the motion? We'll take a vote now on the approval of social services accounts payable. All those in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thanks, Paul.
All right. And Barb? Yeah,
Good morning.
good morning.
Morning.
County Auditor Barb Block. And I have just a few items. The first one is an educational one that we provide, or historic information, whichever way you wanna look at it. And it's our tax levy report. It gives a comparison, and when I first started, I thought it was mandatory, and I know some counties do and some counties don't. But it gives you an understanding of what is a benchmark for what goes delinquent January first in the items that are levied. So your levy funds are shown, and then it also shows the credit balance to them and the relationship from year to year. One thing I do want you to note is that at the end of 19, we were somewhat upset to the fact that we had gained in the amount of delinquent percentage, and we did slide back down. You'll see it gave you a kind of a 10-year history on that, which is a benchmark to see the health of the community as well. The other item that we put together a couple years ago, and I've been doing this in my office for quite some time, but sharing it with the board, and that is at each interval as we take our settlement payments, being May, October, November, and how very similar the percentage to the entire levy is in the payments. Obviously, those are the due dates, and they stay percentage-wise collected per levy very much similar, and also very similar in the unpaid. So that, this is just giving you, a feeling for the taxpayers, the health of the delinquent and likely the forfeit. So it's an informational, piece that we provide annually, and we try to do that in February.
Can I, what does DQ stand for?
Delinquent.
That's just an abbreviation for the word
Abbreviation,
delinquent.
that's pretty standard, and I'm glad you asked, because that is,
Look at the year end.
that I use that a lot, but yes,
unpaid.
the delinquent settlements
Okay,
of all years that are not considered a current year. Okay,
be good.
A couple of years ago, it
Any other
seemed like it
questions
was
on
off a
that?
little bit.
so that. And obviously, I've had one person comment earlier, and maybe I should comment on that as well. You know, we can have a given taxpayer, you know, flip from one side to the other, not be able to pay their taxes in the current year and go into delinquent. These are trends that we show just a general trend, not a, you know, the dilemma of a given taxpayer. And it could really affect if it was a very large taxpayer unable to make their commitments.
So have we talked about forfeit properties, since the last few months?
I just started working on the forfeit properties. Pixie and I sent the first notices. We give them a 60-day notice that tells them that we're gonna be in the process, and then we start with the 4 methods of forfeiture, which is the newspaper advertisement, the sheriff serving them personally on their property, and then the mailing of them a certified letter letting them know that that's what's happening, and anyone attached to their property, whether it be mortgage companies or other. And the amount doesn't look like it's any
Looking
different, so I was
about the
really
same.
pleased when I was seeing this. I was, you know, I was fearful that, oh my, this is coming at us. And I was pleased to see that these numbers were down a bit from the previous year, so
Right.
that was very helpful. Does that mean that the ones we have won't forfeit? You know, I don't know.
But you're not seeing a lot on
And
the
I'm not
books
seeing-
that's any different than
Nope,
other
nope,
years.
I was actually doing a lot of annual reports for the auditors of all the cities. They're, you know, really in gear.
Right.
And not seeing a lot of change. Things were really very similar, which
Good.
was pleasing to me, cause I like numbers and I was looking at that.
Was there any issue with the COVID? I mean, do people get an extension? Do they get a break? Do they get anything at all
In
with?
Meeker County, the only break that was given by our county board was to extend the no interest into, the earlier part of July. So we gave them a couple of extra months to pay their first installment, those that were
Okay.
due May 15th. Beyond that, Meeker County did not do an extension for taxpayers on their property. There are other counties that did, and other counties that didn't address that at this point, so. we
I think
did
that's
see that
because we haven't seen a great issue. I mean, if you own, if you're a landlord, you can't get rid of them if they're not paying their rent, working or not. There's no guidelines. If they just decide they're not gonna pay during COVID,
So the
you're not gonna
property
get paid.
owner is taking a hit.
Right.
One-
That's kinda what I worry about a little bit, if we have landlords who have a lot of rentals, but I haven't heard that they've had an issue, but you haven't been able to evict anybody for months, so.
And
But
in
I haven't
our
heard,
process Now, we had to double check our processes to move forward with the forfeit process. So whether we have a home that is actually occupied, I haven't studied exactly what will happen in May or June of this year.
and you
when we
haven't
get
heard
to
of any landlords
It
who
hasn't.
have multiple properties having an issue,
this
that's
point.
been what I've kinda been worried about.
We do have our conference tomorrow and Thursday, so a lot of updates will come to us, which will come down from the state as to, the Department of Revenue and some other guidelines. And so I hope to become a little more knowledgeable statewide on what's happening.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I would add from 2020 that one of the things that we did was when we moved that date to 60 days, gave an extra 60 days, we also monitored what was coming in and what people were paying, so it gives us a gauge as to how the rest of the year will play out. So that was why there was no further action done for the second half of the year, cause for the most part, as you can see from Barb's numbers, that it's not there hasn't been a significant change in percentages of people, delinquents and things like that,
I was
so
curious because.
we're trying to.
And if that
You
changed.
feel for the landlord, and they're the ones that have to pay the taxes, and they have a strict due date. But if they're the renter, they're getting these monies coming in, they're supposed to pay their rent with the monies that are coming from the government, but of course, they're not gonna pay their rent unless they have to, well, then the landlord is the person that's stuck holding the
And,
pay.
and on the property owner, you know, as far as a non-landlord, that property owner too, we tend to understand the same thing, that if, just because they got a federal government check or something like that, they don't necessarily pay their property taxes. So that's why them percentages don't fluctuate that much. People are gonna pay their taxes, usually do a good job of it, and so we monitor it, and if there becomes a hardship, then we would adjust that, but that's kind of been the reasoning
Okay,
process to it, so.
So hopefully with this here chart, we'll monitor that and see any
Sure.
places that might happen.
I'm
And
curious.
also with the 60-day notice of, potential working on toward forfeiture, we received a number of calls. We knew when those letters got their mailbox. So, you know, it sometimes is that last ditch effort to say, hey, but I have to do it now. Or, some of them are looking at some type of a payment plan, which we can do for them also. There's confession payment plans that they can do. So we're trying to help those, and we'll see what that does. And you'll see that in about a month or two when they bring them.
Okay,
Moving on to the next annual report that we do, and that's the aggregate gravel tax distribution. And I think you see in the summary, it's laid out quite nicely how that happens. 3% over the top comes off for administrative costs, and then the statute does put the guidance of 42.5 township or mine, or to the road and bridge fund, and then the 15% that goes into the restoration fund. On the 3-year average, we have received about 68,000, so we're a little higher than the 3-year average for collections in 2020. The restoration fund is currently at 120,000, and we'll be putting another 10,000 in. So just a quick note of update to the board. The aggregate committee met last week. Julie and Steve sit on that along with about 8 township and some county staff. And we're working very hard to come up with a form that will be brought to you in one of the next meetings as a suggestion to pull funds or to allocate funds from the restoration fund, which has been very problematic, and that will be in another meeting, or you might share, Steve and Julie might share some of that with their committee updates in a little bit. So what's before you today is the approval of the distribution. That will be the distribution to each of the townships where mined, and also to the Road and Bridge Fund and my office for administration.
I'll make a motion to approve the gravel tax distribution to the townships.
And I'll second, Madam Chair.
second. Okay, we have a motion to approve the gravel tax distribution. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
The next item is a ditch item, and I'm just gonna do just a quick update on what happened here for those of you that aren't ear to the rail on all the joint ditch processes that we go through. This is a joint ditch between Candy, Ojai, Meeker, and Renville. We just went through a total redetermination. And a few weeks ago, I brought to the board the request to have a resolution for identifying Meeker County's representatives. There was an error in that, and working with our consultant Kale and the other counties, it was decided to do a full resolution upon now reestablishing Joint Ditch 1. Joint Ditch 1 in this entire configuration, redetermination, eliminated about 6 laterals and also some branches, brought it all into one. So we had representatives assigned throughout the time frame for the laterals and the branches and the repairs. That will all be rescinded in today's motion. When you make this, we'll put one set of representatives to the Joint Ditch 1 system when it is between Candy, Ojai, Meeker, and Renville. So that is the flyover of what's happening here today with the resolution that's being set up. We do have Paul Johnson as our representative on this Joint Ditch 1, and that will go forward as our representative based on the percentages. And so the recommended motion would be to confirm this and ratify what was already done at the joint board meeting a couple weeks ago, and have on record here at Meeker County the process for board authority and also for succession to board authority.
So you need to pass a resolution.
Correct.
I had a question. Yes, this will require a resolution roll call when we get to that point. But on page 2 of the form here that Barb provided us with, Paul, it says the Meeker County Board of Commissioners appoints the following initial member, and that's you. And then number 3, it says, future vacancies shall be filled by the successor commissioner from that particular district.
That was a setup that's more recommended in recent time for the simple reason that with redistricting and with changing of staff, we don't have to come before our boards with, numerous joint ditch resolutions of assigning an individual. So this is assigned to District 3.
Oh, Brian was on,
Where Brian was.
he was on there before.
And you're okay with that, Paul? You're aware of all of that and,
Yes.
okay.
And then one other thing, Julie, what we try to do when we assign or recommend the assignment is to make it be people that you are, that they're your specific constituents, and when we only have one, we start with, the most served, and then when we need to do 2, 3, or even sometimes 4, we branch out in that manner. So it's most served constituents on out, so you're serving the people or working with the people that you should be working with first.
I just wanted to make sure Paul was well aware of that because we're kind of new to all of this.
Well, and Barb wasn't, JD one, correct me if I'm wrong, this is one where they had two, we've kinda,
We've gone back and forth.
I was on it too with
Okay.
District 3 and now we're going back the other way, so there's been a little
Juggling going on.
shell
Okay.
game.
Not a back and forth on this one.
On JD1.
Yeah.
And that was after the redetermination. Prior to the redetermination, if we were to go to some of the laterals, we do have more representatives because it goes by the percentage of the value of the land, and then that's how we determine which 5. And everyone always has 1. So we, in the laterals that we're going to make note that they are, this is superseding that, those representations go away. So we have had at least 2 on a couple of the laterals of JD1, which now will be eliminated, and there will be 1 representative. And then keep in mind, you always are allowed to step aside and send an alternate if you need to from your districts.
All right. All right.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we take joint ditch number 1 resolution confirming the selection of members, and we approve it.
Do I hear a second?
I second that motion.
Okay, we have a resolution before us, and I would like to call for the roll call. And Corey, would you help us with that, please?
I would be happy to. Commissioner Schiefelbein,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Oberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Bredesen.
Yes.
Madam Chair, in the next part B, we did not say that this would supersede all others. I think we would like to do a motion or a resolution, not a resolution, but a motion that this resolution just passed replaces previously adopted resolutions on file for the joint ditch 1, including the laterals and branches that have been now consolidated due to redetermination. So that we put on record if they find another set in the minutes that this has now superseded all of those laterals and branches.
Okay,
So moved.
so moved. All right.
Is this a resolution too, or just a
It-
motion?
This,
Be a motion
I
just
think
to
it
that
can just be a motion.
Okay,
And
good.
Gil did indicate when I reached out to him that he wanted us to be clear that we were negating any previously appointed situations that would surface in the minutes so that they didn't become some legal problem down the road.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Johnson. Do I hear a second?
I'll second, Madam Chair.
Okay, we have a second to make it a written document that this new information will supersede things from previous minutes. All right, should we take a voice vote? All those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, then the last item is the payables, and when I did look through, that educational material for SHIP was one that caught my eye because, you know, cookbooks were interesting, but, it did say educational, so I answered that one.
It was just a time, yeah, I mean,
It was
Yeah.
interesting, no,
it was
it's
odd, it
interesting.
was not one I see every day.
It's odd, but it was in their SHIP program, and I'm sure very important part of the education materials. Other than that, you received those around noon, and then you did receive that one later, because we were still, searching for a credit card approval.
Move to approve.
All right,
Oh.
we have a motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second, Madam Chair.
Okay. We have a motion to approve county and the accounts payable, correct? Have I worded that correctly? County and hospital accounts payable. And we have a second, and let's take the vote. All those in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Barb.
Thanks, Mark.
And now we have Andrew.
The only thing that is, in your packet for today is the, monthly fund cash balance report. And then I also just wanted to note that, we will be having a work session next week. You'll be getting an agenda today, but there'll be a packet that comes out later in the week. Just so you're aware.
Is there anything within your report then that we need to
Nope, it's just information.
address? Then we move on to number 12, Board of Commissioners Committee updates. Beth, would you like
You
to
know,
start? You're
I'm
number
a li-
one.
I'm feeling a little lame here. I think I
Oh.
forgot some of my information at home.
Well,
We had CHB, which Julie can report on too. We had it was a lot of housekeeping, election of officers, deciding when we were gonna do meetings. They did some COVID reporting, which I wrote down but don't have with me, I'm sorry, but that changes from day to day anyway, so. Then I had Prime West. See if I have any information on that. They've given out 21,887 COVID tests, or not given out, that they've done, if I've got that right.
conducted, okay.
We talked I went to the first financial, I'm on the finance committee, and I'm gonna tell you, there's a lot of things there to understand, so I'm just gonna, the cash is sitting fine, they're doing fine with cash. Their participation rate is up because they're not reviewing people because of COVID. So their average is up that way. There's some things going on legislatively. I sent a email to Corey. They're gonna have a workshop March, I don't remember the date, where they want all the commissioners that they can attract from every county, the administrators, the social service people. She's gonna be sending the information to Prime West, and they will get back. Do you remember what date it said on there? They'll get back to you guys with an invite. And if you can make it, I think that would be interesting for everyone, cause there is, I think Paul will attest, there's a big learning curve, at least for me, on this, so, and it's a big operation. I had a hospital meeting for the finance committee, and then we also had a board meeting yesterday. Paul attended his first one. We talked a lot about the vaccination clinic. I'm sure Kurt will be coming to go over the finances. We're not at the biggest lot. Remember, Steve, we talked about probably $11 to $12 million loss. We're doing a lot better than that because of we've gotten between $5 and $6 million of help between PPP and COVID, the CARES Act money, et cetera. So that's been better than expected. One of our goals when we leased the clinics was to get rural health clinic status, because when you get that, your reimbursement rate is like $230, and you have to go, versus what we're getting now, it's big and it's cost-based, and you just can make a lot more money. And we had to go through a lot of things, and they just about got through them. In fact, they did. We got to get the approval, and somebody in St. Paul, when they did the COVID Act, put, or the COVID, I think it was St. Paul, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
They put in that as of 2000, if you hadn't been grandfathered in, that the reimbursement rate was gonna go down like to 200, I can't remember.
$100.
$100
From 230.
from 230. So this is an issue. So Nicole is working with them. We think it can be fixed. We think we were in early enough. Nobody seems to know how it got in there, but so hopefully it can be fixed, because you're looking at millions of dollars of revenue that's not gonna be captured if we don't get in, grandfathered in, so the jury's still out on that. They've had 2 vaccination clinics. The first one was at Cornerstone. I think if you get the paper, you probably read about it in the paper. It was interesting. They got called, I believe, Friday. And they said, we're gonna be sending you 700 vaccines by Wednesday. So they had to put together a vaccination clinic, and I'm telling you, they did a wonderful, wonderful job. I heard a lot of compliments on the clinic. I got calls from constituents that were there and said this was just flawless, from going to CCT with the list of who needed a ride, and those people providing the rides for nothing, and get them into the building and get them out of the building, and it was great. Dr. Deb said that she had older people sitting in the church going, this is the first time I've been in church for a year. And of course, they weren't in church, but just that they could sit and visit. So, you know, it was touching. They did a wonderful, wonderful job, and I want the public to know what a good job the hospital did putting this together. Friday, I helped, they got 200 more doses. So I helped we did that up at the hospital, and there again, it was flawless. Our CEO was sitting outside all wrapped up like a polar bear, greeting everybody because it was so cold, and getting them, and I helped get them in and out. And this week we didn't get any, so because of the weather, they're saying, and you never know what you're getting. They did some reporting, and Paul, you can start. Paul was at the meeting to jump in here too. The testing is down from what it was. The numbers are down in the county. I believe we're at about, I don't know, 10% of the county that's vaccinated.
11.
13.1.
It's up to that now.
Yeah, so, you know, we have a ways to go, but the fact that they could get it together on the weekend to do 700, I got a call on Sunday evening. My dad is 93, and he was fortunate, he'd already had the first one at the VA, but they called me and said, do you wanna bring your dad in Wednesday? And they called me on a Sunday night, so they had people stop what they were doing, come in. That doesn't always happen, so we were very fortunate, so.
If I may, just to expand on what you just said, those 700 people all had to have records pulled. They had to be called, confirmed. The ones they didn't get, they went back. Did she say they tried to reach out to people
Three times.
Three
I believe.
times. So, I mean, this was not some little task.
It
And
was
they
big.
accomplished it by Tuesday?
Wednesday they started.
And
Yeah, but I mean, they had everything lined up.
They had
by-
it lined up,
And I
and
think
they have to get papers.
expanding on that too with Diane on the EOC too, they have 72 hours to get this in an hour.
Right.
Yep.
So I mean,
And they had called Diane I think to see but Diane had a clinic scheduled the same day that the first vaccination clinic, so they've done a great job. If we only knew when we were getting them, that, you know, that would be wonderful,
that
but you don't have
Diane's
any.
Monday report too was she was expecting 300, she only got 100.
That's what
So
the
I
issue
mean,
is.
that's the trouble, the target is hard to.
But,
to
and
expect-
they're not
Yeah.
charging anything because, the reimbursement isn't enough to even, you know, to code and send in. And it's costing a lot of money, like $1,500 an hour.
That's just the personnel.
That's just the personnel that it takes to do a vaccination clinic for the days it took to do the 700. You know, maybe there'll be some funding down the road for it, you never know. Maybe we got some Medicare money that we got an advance on that I don't know if the decision's been made, if we have to pay all of it back yet, so maybe some of that'll work out. We'll see, so. But I just want you to know they've done a great job, so.
And this is a joint effort between public health and the hospital.
Well, they do work together, but in this case, it was the hospital and clinics because they were busy and the short notice, et cetera, et cetera. Even right down to CCT, you know, which we're part of. Kurt said he personally took a list over and, you know, they were on it right now. People were just, people to greet him and take him in and bring him out, so.
Excellent.
And you know, I was telling, I had grandmothers that I was kind of, you know, wheeling down. If they couldn't walk, I'd wheel them down to where they had to go, and they said that they were so excited because some of them haven't seen their grandchildren for a year.
Yeah.
Because they've stayed home, so they can't wait to get the second vaccination, so. That's my report, maybe you guys will have more to add.
Okay.
The only thing I have to add on the hospital report is it was kind of an interesting thing. You know, testing is down. And they said one of the reasons testing is down is that people don't want to be tested, come out positive because that would require a quarantine and they would have to miss work and they can't afford to miss work. You know, so people aren't even getting tested when they aren't feeling well because of that particular fact. There's an economic impact that I think sometimes we don't always think about when it comes to.
Well, they can't,
these
you know, they're
folks.
living paycheck to paycheck, and if they have to take 14 days
14
out of
days
their,
off.
or 10, whatever, they just aren't doing it. That's some of it. Also, our numbers are down. Thankful they're down. That's a good thing, so.
We had AIS meeting, which is our aquatic invasive species meeting. Julie was on it, Andrew was on it also. Good thing is, once again, we have enough money so that we will have folks at landing doing the boat inspections. So when somebody is bringing in a boat or putting one in, there's someone there to find out where it's been, if it's been cleaned, all of these things. I was a little concerned with the way the financials came out and how they were reported. It was confusing. I had a discussion with Andrew, and Andrew's already attacked that thing, and I think by the next meeting, that portion should be fixed so that it's a very clear and concise dollar figure report, which it wasn't. Also, the other thing was she did not have access to our WebEx. So we were using free people call or something, I can't remember what it was.
Free conference call.
Yeah, and seemed to be a little difficult for some of them to get on and so forth. So I think you've taken care of that also. So they'll have an actual WebEx meeting on the next one. So I just think that having the boat inspectors is a very, very good thing for our lakes. The last thing we want is what Lake Coronas has, and that's that starry stony water, if I'm saying that backwards, because that can ruin a lake for a long period of time.
I think Coronas has had extra, we paid for extra inspections there years ago already.
They're doing harvesting, they've done a lot of
They've done
work
a
up
lot of
there.
stuff. Cause
That's
I
a
can
tough
remember
one.
3-4 years ago them coming and asking us to share in some of it, cause they put extra on and we did it, so.
Yeah, that particular species is very, very difficult to control once it gets into your lake. So, you know, and how does it move from lake to lake? Well, we've got ducks, geese, flying things that pick it up, move it to a lake, a boat. I mean, several ways that can transmit. So, Prime West, as Beth was saying, it was kind of interesting because we had a meeting, Andrew, Beth and I, and Paul Bukovic, and he was telling us about some of the things that go on behind the scenes that we may not understand, and I heard them say in that meeting, talking about counties having to ante up if that particular fund.
That's nothing to worry about at this
No.
time, they've got
No.
plenty of money, so.
But it was just how good Paul had done at getting into the depths of it to get us to help understand. I'll be honest, I don't know how many meetings you've been to, Beth, but
Not enough.
Prime West is, I was very thankful that Beth was on the other end of the phone because we
It's a
text.
big animal, for sure.
If, you know, it was coming fast, I'd text Beth and say, what did that mean? And she'd fire right back saying, this is what that is and stuff. So, I'm gonna continue I'm the alternate, but I'm gonna continue coming to these because,
I wish now I would've went to more as an alternate. You know, Hausman did a great job and I just thought, well, but you thinking about the future, it's fine. And they always, when Huberty was on, I would go up a couple times a year. but it changes all the time. We're still trying to get the other counties in. County-based purchasing is, we're fighting things. So it'll be interesting if all of you can sit in on what they're offering on the training or whatever. I think it would be, a good thing for everyone.
That's coming up in March.
Yeah, I just can't remember the date right now.
That's fair.
14th, I thought. But anyway, you'll get something from there.
Yeah.
Well, it's not them then. I'm wrong again. I don't know if I know, but anyway, you'll get an email.
Sure.
So,
And it will be worth your time. Be confusing probably, but it'll be worth your time. EOC, really, there was nothing on EOC. Most departments did not have a report to make. We heard the same statistics, basically as what you've heard here today on cases, and the deaths have remained at 33, which is a good thing. That's been there for a long time. And we got some clarification on that also at the hospital.
right.
A death is attributed to your county if that is their place of residence. So if I go to another state and I'm visiting and I die, I do not become a part of their statistic. It's where you reside, your permanent residence. PACT, another one. That is I would suggest to everybody, just, you get a chance, go to their website. Because I could sit here for hours and tell you all the things they provide to our
No, you
folks.
can't.
No, I can't, you're right, cause I don't know. Like free tax service, for those who can't afford to have their taxes done. They have a free tax service, and that's just one little
How much money
tiny
do we
element.
spend to get that free tax service? That's been always what
I don't know.
years ago, I didn't think PACT was not to interrupt you, but March 4th is what I see on my email.
Okay.
That's gonna be the Prime West Education Workshop.
Let's see, they're gonna have a brain conference in April. I was left out of that, I won't be invited, I suppose, cause it's a brain conference.
That's what I was gonna say.
Ouch, ouch.
Did you ever go to one of those when you were on it, Steve? I never did, but they always said it was really interesting, but I never went. But you maybe should.
I'm going to.
They'll let you in.
One of the things is the community outreach, getting their word out, what they do. They're working very hard because, I'll be honest, until I started as a commissioner, I really didn't know what PAC was about.
Well, and I would just add, Diane and Paul both sit on various committees in there too, and if you ever visit with them, I mean, it sheds a lot of, helps connect some of the circle of the things that they do, the outreach and different things that they do, so.
But there's a lot of things going on in that particular group, and a lot of the commissioners from the other counties very active on this also. And as the newbie, you're not quite as active, you're more listening than you are doing anything else. But I think this is a very good collaborative group that does a lot of positive things. So I really, really recommend, you got some time, I say that, but hit their website and you can just go right across the top, it drops down the menu, you can look at all the different things that PAC does. So that's it for me.
Very good. I had 3 meetings last week, the aquatic species. We met on Wednesday, the 3rd. It was a Zoom meeting. Paul is on that committee with me. Paul graciously is on their executive committee. That was good.
Graciously.
Yes,
Yeah.
graciously took on that responsibility. The waterfront company was approved for their inspection services. There was some debate, a little bit of controversy about that, to the tune of $136,000. They do, correct me if I'm wrong, Paul, this waterfront company, they do the hiring and conduct land inspections at various lake landings. I found it interesting that there are 87 counties in Minnesota. 4 don't get funding for aquatic species inspection, if they have no lakes, I'm assuming. And Meeker County is the 12th largest recipient of funds for the aquatic invasive species money. And we have 107 lakes in Meeker County. I thought that was interesting information. And I was also confused with their budget. Is it $1.5 million or is it 340,000? There was a big number difference and I couldn't figure out the math.
They roll it up. What they do is they have to show everything for the entire time, so all of their income over the last 5 years is rolled into that number. All of their expenses for the last 5 years is rolled into that number. And then the difference is what should be your checkbook balance.
But I was curious, what's the annual? You know, we usually think of things in annual terms, 12-month. But, so I was a little confused with that.
That one's been a little bit of a conversation point over the years.
Okay, well,
So
maybe
I'm glad it's good.
we'll get some clarification on that for the next meeting. Then I attended, we had I called it the three-way, public health. It's Meeker, McLeod, and Sibley. We met on Thursday, the 11th, and that was also Zoom. Beth is on that committee with me. They had their election of officers, and Beth very graciously accepted the position of secretary, and
I don't
that
know
was
if it was
wonderful.
gracious. I told her, I thought it was a good place for her to start, but she kind of said
said-
no, so.
I nominate Beth. I need a second. Quickly take a vote. Thank you very much.
Really, this might be a good place for you to start. No, she said.
We moved quickly for nominations.
Gracious is a kind way of
Very
saying
gracious.
you drew the short straw.
Well, we kind of,
Beth was very gracious indeed. So they continued with their appointments of committees, election of officers. As of February 11th, 11% of Meeker County had been vaccinated. There's been an awesome decline in positives, but also for the same reason, I don't want to quarantine, so I'm not getting a test. I have seen that happening. I want to send out kudos to our Diane Winter. She is amazing. She gives a report. She is thorough. She's articulate. She's wonderful to compliment her staff and volunteers for all of these various responsibilities that have come their way. Well done, Diane Winter.
if you notice while you were there, if there's a question from the CHS of anything, they go right to Diane
Right to
because
Diane.
she has the answer.
She is very thorough and articulate. And I loved how she was very complimentary of her workers. There have been 6,319 deaths in Minnesota for the entire year. Now it's been just about a year. We're just about at that yearly point. The committee decided to meet quarterly instead of monthly. And I was watching the news last night. Cook County, which is the arrowhead, the little point of northern Minnesota, they have over 40% of their population vaccinated. I thought that was interesting. We, as of your hospital meeting, I guess it's at 13%.
Well, they're pretty sparse up there, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, say there's only 10 people.
That's what I was
They carpool.
They got that vaccinations, they handled everybody.
That was a low blow. Sorry, Cook County.
Yeah,
I
I
had
thought,
to.
wow, 40%, but we're thankful for every bit that we have,
That is
which is
good.
now up to 13, so we're heading in the right direction. And the last meeting that I had was the gravel tax committee, and Steve was on that with me. We met Thursday, the 11th. We were live here in the boardroom. Barb Block presided, so of course it was well done. She had provided us with packets of information, lots of discussion about the gravel tax and how it can be dispersed. She identified things called CUP, which is conditional use permit, and IUP, which is an interim use permit, explained those. There's about $120,000 available from gravel tax funds. And we have a meeting today at 1:30, which will involve the townships, and I'm betting that discussion may come up during that meeting this afternoon. We'll have to see.
They used to always have a gravel tax meeting after the township meeting, and are they gonna do that again?
We are not this year because we
Oh,
asked the
because of
townships
the,
to be
yeah,
virtual.
they used to, that's what they used to do, so.
Yep, and so the decision was made to hold the gravel tax meeting on a separate day, so that's what
Okay.
happened last week.
Okay,
It's on
so
Thursday.
that's been done, what they
Yeah.
usually do.
Yeah, we just did it ahead.
That concludes my report. Danny, you're next.
All right, I don't have much at all. I got shut out.
Where you been? You been doing?
Saving per diem, so. We can pay for that
I
full-time
kinda got you.
park.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Oh.
I was premeditated about that. I literally didn't have any committees, so I have nothing to report.
Didn't you really?
None.
Well,
None at all.
we're gonna fix that.
I'll keep that low key.
Not on it.
This-
Eddie's.
Danny, this button right here, push that shuts the mic off.
Oh, yeah.
I have that sometimes too, and then all of a sudden I have a week where I'm going somewhere every day. It's just.
It's good timing for me, I'll be honest, so, but no committees.
Okay, Steve?
And actually, yeah, this was probably the quietest 2 week stretch that I've had in a
That's
year and a
unusual
half.
for you.
I mean, and we've talked about most everything quite in depth so far. So I'm glad I'm last, but I did have a EMS, I did attend, I'm alternate on the Emergency Services Board Legislative, Committee, so I did attend their meeting on the 4th. And, I could give you a list of acronyms and different things that you will understand, but, and I still don't understand most of them, so it was good information, but it's gonna take me, sitting on a few more of them to come up to speed, because that was just legislation and, things that we talked about on there. And then we had a EOC, and we pretty much touched on Diane's report and all the positivity rates and deaths throughout the county. And everybody knows what's going on, all the employees throughout the county as far as buildings and opening and all that. And class and comp, we discussed the parks position in the B21. And then the gravel tax, last Thursday, the only thing I would add there is that, the 15% that is and Barb alluded to that, we will have a further report on that, but we've got that 15% is kind of locked into account. And since 2008 or 9, the state changed some statute requirements, and we don't really have guidelines as how we can utilize those funds. So that has just been building at like $10,000 a year, and now we're up to $120,000 in that account. And the state isn't giving us, when we inquire to the state and legislators what we can do, how we can correct that, so we have some guidelines how to use those funds. They come back to us and basically say, well, you tell us what you're gonna use them for, and we'll tell you if you can. And so we're trying to get multiple counties involved, because it's every county in the state that's got a gravel tax has to put that money aside, yet there's no direction what to do with the money and how to utilize it. So we're working, Brandy and one of her assistant attorneys, Matt, correct? I think it is, are working to help try and formulate a plan and get some consensus from other counties as to how we can actually I shouldn't say better utilize whatsoever those funds for whatever. They used to use them towards the highway, through roads, but the state kinda pulled that back from us.
They changed the wording of what would be qualified or guidelines.
And they actually did, I think it's almost masterful. You couldn't have designed a circle any better than it's the cat, it's the dog chasing its tail. I mean, every time you come up with an idea, it's like, oh, that points you right back to the beginning again. It's almost like somebody
It was quite a
sat
discussion
around.
here. We had fellows from the various townships, and it was a very nice meeting, and we were all trying to invent this new wheel. And that's not an
The wheel's
easy
been
task.
invented, we just don't know how to get off of it. So we're looking into that, and that'll be an ongoing process, but, that's all I had.
Is there any additional business that needs to come before us today?
Andrew, have you heard back? Are we gonna have, I know it's hard to say because it's virtual, but from the township, have you heard anything from
Corridor
them?
scheduling with them.
I think there's approximately 20, I'm guessing, that responded.
Good.
So a much smaller group than if we had had a live meeting, but,
Good.
good response.
And we're gonna do that here, correct?
Yes, so
Yeah.
we will be here in the room. We'll have them up on the screen.
Okay.
and-
So I can't stay home. was hoping to stay home and do it from home. It's so cold, I don't wanna go out.
I know, I was wondering if we
I
would be
was,
able to
today I'm
be.
thinking, why aren't we doing Zoom today?
We could, I mean, we're set up to do it as WebEx, and so certainly, I know when we had talked about this a few weeks ago.
No, I know.
It was the board's directive
Who
to,
knew it was gonna be 25 below zero?
It's
Today's the
February, for God's
toughest.
sakes. We
Oh
don't
my
have 25
gosh,
below.
that's ridiculous.
so I think from a logistical perspective on our end, all it would take is getting the staff was gonna, be given presentations to be at their desk rather than in the room here, so
Okay,
if the board would prefer.
so
to
we
do that.
recess till, what time is it?
1:30.
Any additional?
And it is a recess, correct?
It's a recess.
We recess.
So I think what I will do is I will adjourn our official county commissioner meeting at this point. At 11 o'clock, we will
No, we just recess it.
Recess.
adjourn,
No, we recess.
but then we recess.
We don't adjourn at all, we just take a recess till 1.
It's a recess and
Recess.
reconvene.
So we don't have to
No, we'll
adjourn
just recess
the
till.
process
I
of,
don't think so, do we? No.
okay? So then we will recess until 1:30 and we will reconvene here in the boardroom.
Correct.
Correct.
That takes care of business.
And I received an email from Paul on the 79 cents mileage rate, and he said, "You're right, it was in my budget. This is a pass-through of CCC's administration of 22 cents, or CCT's. 22 cents, they get an admin fee of 22 cents a mile on top of the
Oh.
IRS rate."
I've never noticed that before, and they always have all those mileages in there, and I just never paid attention.
And then it says, "We can bill the admin to Prime West, and the mileage rate is higher than the IRS rate." So,
Are they
Yeah.
selling the cookbooks or not? Can you
he
buy
didn't,
one?
he didn't say anything about it. We got that, that's, Barb knew that. That was, just stood out. I had to bring that up.
Oh, I always love a new cookbook.